Yes, good morning, good day, wherever you are. 10th of Av, we've come out of darkness into light. And hopefully the darkness has been nurturing our light. What I mean by that, we've talked a lot about, and we'll touch on this today, that Geula comes from Gullus. Gullus isn't just an unfortunate event that has to be pushed event. It's shaping us. It's forging us. Like you put metal in a forge to create something stronger. So hopefully yesterday has done some of that with us, with our own conscious involvement, and brought us closer to the dropping of the Aleph into the Elis, into the Gullus and the redemption. And today we have an opportunity to talk mainly and entirely about the redemption. So 10th of Av in Hayom Yom. Okay, now this harked back to the first letter in Igeres HaKodesh, where the Alter Rebbe began, Ketanti mikol hachasodim. I have become small from all the kindnesses. Now remember, this letter was said, if you recall, we talked about this, when the Alter Rebbe came out of the torture of Petersburg. And he says, I become small from all this, meaning he was humbled, and small means, humble means also be opened. And I mentioned then, and this I think is related to this transition from 9th of Av to 10th of Av, the Frierdiker Rebbe said that of all of the nisyonos, all of the tortures and difficulties that he had in his imprisonment in a much later time, he said about them, I would never wish them on anyone, but I would never, ever let go of them either, because they strike and open up a very deep channel of awareness of Hashem, about which we will speak when we get to the Tanya. So he said, I'm small. He opens himself up. Now, this Hayom Yom speaks about a couple of diukim, couple of little details in this first letter that we learned a week ago. So it starts. This was the Frierdiker Rebbe tells us is from his grandfather, who was the Rebbe Maharash, who was the son of the Tzemach Tzedek. He said, originally my grandfather related. Originally, the epistle Ketanti, this letter that we just spoke about, I become small from all the kindnesses, ended with the words, restrained spirit. At the end of this letter, he speaks about and a person offends you, and he's now, in this part of the letter, he's instructing and giving very emotional teaching to his Hasidim. When a person offends you, don't respond in kind offense to offense, but the expression is namuchas ruach, be soft and gentle of spirit. And he said later, and that's the way the letter ended. However, later, the Alter Rebbe delivered the mimer with adding the words, with gentle spirit, and answer very softly. Don't respond in kind, but answer softly. And he used for that an example from the writings of, like, the face you show to the water is the face you show back. So he added that expression. And he used that expression, he says, in this Hayom Yom 3 times in a mimer, in a mimer that he delivered 3 times, following the interpretation of Rashi and not the Targum. Rashi interprets this the way we take it. The face you show to the water is the face you take back, and the Targum takes it as waters differ, as men's hearts differ. The face that you show to the water is the face you get back. Men's hearts, people's hearts are different. And what you show and what you are can be different. One person can be different from another. But the pshat that we go with is Rashi's pshat, that if you want softness and love returned to you, then display softness and love to the other. And that can melt away the offensive and the negative. So he added that. And with this, this part of the Yom Yom ends with this implanting these words, his intention was to develop fine character traits in the Hasidim, right? To always forgive one who is angering you, because first of all, you don't know that person, you don't know the circumstances of that person's life, and more important, secondly, that person, just like you, has a nefesh elokis, a godly soul, and that's what we want to bring out. To bring out the godly soul in others, we have to show the godly soul in ourselves. Not fight fire with fire, but fight fire with waters of love. So then the second piece, head of this Hayom Yom. Had the Rebbe not inserted the three words, B'midos emet leyankov, which he does, he says, you should show a lowered spirit according to the attribute of truth of our father Jacob. So the Rebbe Maharaj said on this, a very interesting word, in a certain way, saying it would be better had he left that out, which is unusual to find that, a later Rebbe, he's talking about the Alter Rebbe, and the way he said had he left that out, that spirit that you show to another person of kindness is according to the midas emes, which means it's very, very strong, but also means it's very, very strict. Midas emes is very strict. And he said, had he left that out, he would have attracted 50,000 more Hasidim. But the Rebbe demands the trait of truth, demanding it. Interesting end, I think. In any case, let's go to our Tanya for today and tomorrow, as we put this one away and pick up this one. Okay, Likutei Amorim, lessons in Tanya, page 52 at the top, and in Likutei Amorim, which I just showed you, the bottom of page Chuf Daled. Yeah. Nope, sorry, wrong page. That was the beginning of Katanti. The bottom of page Kuf A. All right, brief recapitulation. This letter is built on the pasuk Ein Yisrael Negola Ela B'Tzedakah. It's a pasuk. This is actually a mimer from the Rambam. The Jewish people are only redeemed by tzedakah, but it's based on a pasuk. The pasuk is Usheveha bech tzedakah. Your captives. This is from a pasuk from Yeshayahu, from Isaiah. Your captives will be redeemed with tzedakah. And we spoke when we met before Tisha B'Av on the 8th of that the redemption of the Jewish soul from Gullus. Remember, captivity, Gullus is compared to captivity, and actually today he'll talk more about that, is twofold. Because it says that your captives, plural, will be redeemed. There are two captives. In the learning of Gemara, a simple plural means two. There are two levels of captivity. One is the external, he's told us, this is what we learned the other day, the external aspect of the heart, and then there's the deeper aspect of the heart. We're going to be talking about doubles today, which is appropriate because this is Shabbos Nachamu Nachamu, a double level of comfort, two levels of the soul. So, with that, I think we can begin here. At the bottom of the page. And that which not every person merits to open up the inner dimensions, the deep levels of one's soul, the second level of the heart. But, I mean, this is also, we find this in Maimon we're going to be learning here on Shabbos, is on the Shema. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokecha, Hashem Echad. And it says, V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha bechol levavecha. And with the entirety of your hearts, plural. It doesn't say bechol lev, to love Hashem with your whole bechol lev. It said levavecha. And so the Shema Yisrael, the love that we have for Hashem, has to touch both levels of our heart. By the way, I think one thing we should remind ourselves that we learn that the more external level of the heart, how is that taken out of gullus, captivity? Largely through contemplation and meditation, learning and not imposing, but allowing the new grooves in the brain that come from learning Torah to penetrate into the heart. And then there's the deeper level of love we spoke about, and we will speak about more today, is Lamaila, is deeper than that, deeper than rational, any rational thinking. We use the word, many different words, super rational, unconscious, preconscious. Those are the levels of the inner dimensions of the heart. And he says, that the fact that not everybody merits to get to this level and reveal this level, of service of the heart, the umka de liba, from the very depths of the heart, bibechinas, in a manner of panemius, in a manner of the innermost dimension of the heart. Hainu, why is that? Why is it somewhat more difficult? I mean, you have to dig deeper, right? And digging deeper is more difficult. So that's because because this level, because this level is in a state of gullus. Yeah, we know that. But why is it in a state of gullus? Because it's been brought into captivity. Something has taken it into captivity. Like a prisoner goes to prison in a dungeon. It's not easy to get out of a dungeon. We'll talk now a little bit of what captivity, what brought the panemius alev, the innermost part of the heart, into captivity. But in any case, this captivity is vahi bechinas gullus, hashechina, that state of the innermost dimensions of the heart, the panemius alev, the inner dimension of the heart, being in a state of captivity, is called gullus of Shekhinah, the exile of God's divine Shekhinah. Mamish. Ki because this Shekhinah, which is Bechinas Nitzus Elokus Shebenavshe Halakish, which is the spark of godliness, which is in the godly soul, is in a state of captivity. Vesibas HaGalus, and the cause of this Galus, is giving us some very now practical information that if we're going to get to the panemius of the heart, which you said that not everybody gets to this, but if you'd like to know how to get to it, and yes, we would, thank you, that's why we're learning this. First, we have to know what caused the panemius of the heart to go into exile in the first place. The Sibas HaGalus, the cause of the Galus, we know from a Maimer Chazal from the Gemara Megillah. It says, Gola Lavavel Shechina Imohem. When we were exiled to Babylon, Shechina Imohem. Now, this word Babel, I'm going to say this from other places, if it is not said here. Babel is the same word as in our English word we have Babel, confusion. In other words, when a person is in a state of confusion, then that's a indication and a cause of the exile of the Shekhinah. We don't have our head on straight. We don't have our heart on straight. When we were exiled to Babel, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, went with them. We've talked about this before, that we schlep God into exile and we bring about his redemption. Mashiach is waiting for us to change our hearts, our ways, our behavior, thought, speech, and action, and that will cause an effect that Mashiach will. It's interesting. The Rebbe always says, open up your eyes, but I'm going to say now, Mashiach will open up his eyes. That's the idea, that what we do down here below, Mashiach is waiting for us to do this. So first we have to know, if you're sick, the first thing you have to know that you are sick, and you have to know what the sickness is, and you have to know the cure. So the sickness is that we have, in whatever way you want to, and each of us can do this in our own way, just think about the ways in which our divine spark is brought into Bavel, the Shekhinah is brought into Bavel, and he's going to help us with that. Because one has invested the innermost part of the point of his heart, bezela umazeh, in the opposite of Kedusha. That means dirty garments. What are the garments? Remember, thought, speech, and action. So the cause of the exile of the Shekhinah, of the panimis of the heart, is the extent to which one is involved, one's thought, speech, and action in things which are not aligned with what Hashem wants. Mila da alma, and they don't have to be prohibited things; they can just be common things. But also taivas u'olam hazeh, and all the desires of this world. Now, desires of this world doesn't mean only, or even mainly, transgressions. It could mean, and does mean often, being drawn into the ideology, the ungodly ideology of the time, the ungodly search for simcha and pleasure. So to the extent that that is happening in any one of us, or in every one of us, to some extent, perhaps, that's drawing the Shekhinah into exile. And that exile is called Babylon. And now he changes the metaphor to a metaphor we've had before, and that's the, quote, foreskin, which is covering over the covenant. The Nakuda Panimia Shibalev, and it's covering over the inner point of the heart. And on this we have another phrase in the Tanakh, which we take metaphorically. It says, that you have to circumcise the foreskin of your heart. Just like there are two levels of the heart, there are two levels of circumcision. Mila upriya. One is called Mila, which we're familiar with, and the other one is called Priya, and that's Shehen Orlagasa. The Mila is the thick skin, and the Klipadaka, the heart, is called Priya. So you have the thick skin and the more thin skin. And similarly, when it comes to circumcising, quote, circumcising the heart, from the taivas gasis vidakas, so there are gross desires that are on the other side, and there are more refined. Some of those more refined thought, speech, and actions are so refined that you're not even aware, or may not be aware, that they can be taking you into the negativity, because let's take this is the common way of behaving, this is the way everybody's doing, etc., etc. So you have to keep your eyes open. So to do both of these, Mila upriya, the outer level of the heart and the inner level. Umol v'lepora, and the din, the halacha, is one who just does, now this is back to circumcision. If you just have the Mila without the priya, it's ka'ilul umol. It's as if there's no circumcision at all. Now there is a circumcision, but you haven't reached what you're capable of, which is to open up the inner chambers of the heart. Because at the end, and when things are at the end of the end, the innermost part of the heart is still covered with some kind of a covering. Even though it may be very thin, the bechinas galus v'shivya. So the innermost part of the heart is still in a state of galus and captivity. Now, when it's speaking about this, the outer skin, perceive, it's written as a pasuk in Chumash that says, that you have to circumcise the foreskin of your heart, and that means atem ba'atzmechem, that means you. These are things you can do in your consciousness. Coming back to the two levels of the heart. Remember, the external level of the heart that we spoke about in the previous part of this letter can be changed by conscious involvement in mitzvahs and Torah, particularly Torah, because Torah is the head of God, the fountainhead of God's wisdom, and doing it in a manner of this bindiness, in a manner that you bring it from Chokhmah to Bina, and bring it from Bina into your heart, right? That's what we can consciously do. But to take away that fine skin, that fine shell, this is something which is difficult for everybody to do. And this is what it says concerning the coming of Mashiach, the Bias HaMashiach, Umol Hashem Elokecha es lebavacha, that Hashem will circumcise your heart. And it's a 1-2. We have to do this, we have to do the avodah that brings about the circumcision of the external part of the heart. We have to, and we can open up our hearts through learning, through doing, etc., through conscious alignment with God's ways. And then it follows that Hashem will open up the inner dimensions of the heart. That's our expression from Shema. Nachamu. Nachamu, 2 levels of comfort, 2 levels of the heart. And with the entirety of your soul. Because one realizes that Hashem is your life, which means one comes to a realization that the entirety of one's being one owes to Hashem. Therefore, this love is from the depths of the heart. And the kudas panimius mamish from the point of the heart, the innermost point of the heart, as we said above. And it comes from a level deeper than das. And this is richly reminding us of what we learned the other day when we spoke about the inner dimension of the heart, the cholababah, coming from the superconscious, the unconscious, the preconscious, not from the levels of rationality, which we identified earlier in the very second part, the second letter, with emuna. Emuna, which is higher than intellect. And therefore, there's an interesting expression. An expression in the Gemara Sanhedrin. Mashiach bo bechesek hadas. Mashiach will come when you're not paying attention. That's the simple explanation. And people use that. And I've heard, unfortunately, people use that. And what do you do? All this striving for Mashiach, wanting Mashiach. Mashiach is going to come when you least expect him. But the Alter Rebbe and other Meforshim teach it very differently, as we will see. It comes from Hesek Das, from faculties deeper than Das. Mashiach comes from us arousing faculties in ourselves, which are Hesek, which are not in the realm of Das. So, but that will take it at plain face value. Mashiach comes the Hesek Das without any, when there's a removal of Das, the Klaus Israel to the entirety of the Jewish people. And that which is deeper than Das is the revelation of the general, most inner point of the point of the heart. And that's the taking out of the Shekhinah and returning the Shekhinah from the Galus and from the Hashveha and from her captivity. La'ad, forever. La'ad ula'el forever and ever. V'chein kol nitzis prati, and also every specific spark of the Shekhinah, shebenefesh kol echad miYisrael, in the soul of each and every individual Jew, yotzois mehagalus, goes out from the galus, v'hashivya, and the captivity, l'fisha. For the moment, we have a model for this. Each and every day, every one of us have an opportunity to do an avodah, and now he's going to explain to us, which takes the penimius alev out of galus. And this relates, even though he's not saying it here, to the Shema. When do we say the Shema? The Shema is in the davening. It's the heart of davening right before we start Shemona Esrei, which is what's the Chachamim called tefillah. Tefillah, narrowly speaking, and the way the Gemara speaks about tefillah, is Shemona Esrei. And the preparation for that is all the Pesukei de Zimra. So davening, as he's about to say, is a pathway for opening up our heart, and particularly when we say bechol levavcha. That's why we say in Shema, after it's a Shema lechecha bechol levavcha, with both parts of your heart. So there is an opportunity for this, which is zut tefillah, as he said. We can do this for a moment at least, each and every day, 3 times a day, however many times you're praying, at the time of davening, which is called avodah shebalev. Davening is called avodah shebalev, the service of the heart. When one davens me'umka deliba, from the depths of the heart, and bechinas nekudas penimius, from the central point of the heart, the deepest point of the heart, aniglas me'orla, and that reveals and takes away not only the externality of the heart, orla, And it brings about the ability to cling to Hashem with a tremendous strength. But shuka oza, by coming to the point of knowing that God is your life. And that comes from, now the Alter Rebbe says it explicitly, from transcending das, from chesek hadas, from getting down deeper than das. Because this level, is much deeper than das of the person, and his understanding of Gedulas Hashem. It's a gift, which is given from Hashem, min Hashemayim, from the heaven, from the innermost dimension, the face. Remember this word panim, face. It's given from the face of Hashem. The face you show to the water, you give yourself over totally in davening and transcend all the hisbaininess that you have hopefully done before davening, and just cry with your heart, cry with your panemius from panim. Panim is also face. The face you show to the water is the face you get from Hashem. You open up the inner chambers of your heart. God opens up the inner chambers, so to speak, of his heart, and that's called Geula. When you've reached Bechinas Panim Elyonim, the inner faces. Meshikosev, as it says, Yor Hashem Panav Elecha, Hashem will show his face to you, his panemius to you. Meshikosev, as is written, Mol Hashem Elekecha, showing his face to you is Hashem, so-called circumcising your heart. That's today's time. We're going to do Shabbos, of course, but I'm going to pause for a minute, see if there's any questions, comments we want to make before we move further. All right, and moving the train right along. The following is known, the Alter Rebbe says. Looking here, we have an asterisk here. I don't know why. All right, the following is known. That Isarusha de La'ela hi be'Isadu Lasato. He's going to explain the mechanics of this. Mechanics of the face you show to the water is the face that you get back. You open the panemius of your heart. God's heart will rain down on you. And I'm using the word rain in a conscious way because he's going to quote a mashal from the Zohar. So the arousal from below affects an arousal. The arousal from above is affected by an arousal from below, dafka. The bechinas halos mayin nuchvin, in the category of things which the Kabbalah calls raising up of the feminine waters. You know, we've talked about this a few times. God is the husband, the husband. We are the bride, and when we come to Him, He comes to us. As our sages have said, excuse me, this is a saying from the Zohar, excuse me, Ein tipa yoredis milamayla, there's no drop of rain which comes from above without an arousal of rain, of water from below. So this is just a scientific fact, that how does rain come? The rain comes from evaporation of water vapor down here below, up. As you know, as you go up, the atmosphere gets cooler and cooler. So when the rain, from warmth, the rain evaporates down here below, and the mist goes up. You may not see it, but there is, humidity, right? Moisture in the air. Then moisture goes up, and as it cools off, it begins to get out of its vapor state and into its physical state. That's what's called a cloud. And then when it gets at that saturation point, it comes down. So rain is a function of an arousal from below. So that's the mashal. That there's no drop of rain to come from above without the water coming up from below. So first, that's back to our mila. A person has to do something. circumcise the outer part of the heart. Lahase orla shalev, to take away the orla from the heart. The klipa hagasa, which is the thick skin, and because of the darker umadak, to take away, excuse me, zehu lahasir orla halev, the klipa hagasa vidaka, and the thick and narrow and thin skin, hamalbishus, in other words, to take out the heart and redeem the heart. Both levels of skin have to be taken away, which both of these levels, malbishus and mechasis al bechinas nekudas panimius aleh, because both of these levels, the thick skin and the thin skin, are covering over the panimius, the inner dimensions of the heart. Shehi bechinas avos Hashem. And what is the panimius of the heart? The panimius of the heart is the place of pure love of Hashem. Bechinas laman chayecha, from the realization, internalization that God is your life. Shehi begullus, and that realization has been in a state of exile. The taivus olam hazeh, in the pleasures of olam hazeh, and I mentioned earlier, the pleasures are not just the pleasures of eating a piece of cake, or the pleasures that are negative mitzvahs, but even those things and ideologies and anything that we get into that's diverting the stream. Use another water metaphor, where the stream of life is being diverted from Kedusha into the opposite of Kedusha. Taivas olam hazeh. Water is always associated in Chazal with taiva, desire, like taivas flow and water flows. Shehem gankem bechinas laman chayach, which these taivas of negativity, of not Kedusha, are also life. A person gets chayas, vitality from them. And he gets, or she gets, a person can get even a great, shot of chayas from the things which are not toward, the things that a person is not meant to be involved in. It can be a source of, at least appear to be, great source of exuberance and pleasure, etc. Bezela umazet, in the opposite side, as we said above. So we open up and reach the foreskin of our heart through the avodah shebelev, from below to above. And then what do we do with it? We go away from the davening to do mitzvahs. And again, back to our general category of mitzvah, which is tzedakah, because all mitzvahs are mitzvahs in which we connect it, which Hashem connects himself with us by us doing what he wants. And in doing his connection with us, he, as it were, is giving life to us poor people, which includes all the universes and all the worlds, which are nothing, and owe their whole life to him, just like we owe our whole life to him. So we give tzedakah. And this tzedakah, nesina tzedakah LaHashem, we're giving tzedakah to Hashem. In other words, why is this to Hashem? Because, again, what we do down here below brings him out above. So when we give tzedakah to someone is in need, he gives what we, poor people, poor universe, poor creation need, which is geula. So, nesina tzedakah Hashem mimamonoi, we give from our money. Shehu chiyusoi, because money is our life. We can't buy food without it, at least in this non-agricultural culture. But befrat, specifically, mishim is and particularly one who does a very hard living, doesn't make a lot of money. And he's very much pressed, for money. And money, therefore, is very tight. And yet he gives some of it away. And so he's giving some of his own life away. Mamish, through this giving of these pennies. Because a person, the nature of a person is when a person works hard, one has a certain pleasure from the work of his hands. If you have something that you're responsible for, you have to put yourself into it. You have to put your whole self into it from the depths of your heart. As is the custom of the world, when they do business, you're always figuring out new ways to get more produce to market. So you invest a lot of yourself in the projects that you do in this world in order to make a parnasa. So that's an example, and other things like this. Bari'ato, so now you take all that investment that you have in in making a parnosa, making a living, and now this time you give a bit of it away. You give away a bit of your pleasure, and you give it to Hashem. When you do when you give tzedakah, or any act of tzedakah, and again, the whole of mitzvahs is an act of tzedakah because you're putting yourself aside to do what Hashem needs us to do. You're doing it for Him, not for yourself. You're just like when you give tzedakah, you're giving it for the benefit of the other, not for yourself. Even though, of course, we're learning, and it's a huge benefit to yourself, because when you give to another, you arouse Hashem to give to the other, which is everything, and you take that money out of galus, and you're creating geula. Each time you do an act of kindness, each time you do an act of giving to someone who's in need, with the goodness of your heart. This activity, you redeem your soul from the pit being galus. You're taking your soul, which here means the point of the inner point of the heart. You're taking it out, you're opening it up, you're redeeming it. Galus, from the state that it had been in, which is a state of exile, the shivya and captivity, b'teicha klippa, amongst the klippas, gasa, amongst the thick klippas, or daka, the thin klippas. Mashakasev is written, we call mishmar netzur libo, from all prisons. It's a pasuk, from all prisons my heart is saved. Mishmar, prison, what's being in prison? Here's Beis HaRasurim. It's a house, which is a house of captivity. Ata nifta, and now you're redeeming yourself from there. Nehachetzoinium, from the negative forces. B'tzedakah zu, with this tzedakah. Zagam came lashon priya, and this lashon redeeming. There's also in financial matters. Priya also means to pay back. So he's now playing on the word. Priya is the thin foreskin of the heart. Priya, that's mila upriya, and now you're paying back. You're getting out of that state. You're turning it inside out, so to speak, and turning that skin into a payback to Hashem, which is the inyan of priya. Priya is chayev, paying back a debt. Shin is chayev, for you become indebted to the Sitra Achra. You're involved in that, and now you're getting out of there. You're saying, here, bang, I'm out of here. You don't own me anymore. I belong to God. This is Priya Sechet, paying back a debt, Shinis Chayev, that you are obligated to. Hushinis Aver Lechatzoinim, and it's Aver Lechatzoinim, and you've done the work, this Aver Lechatzoinim, to the external forces, Shamash Leboy, which had been ruling you, Al Nakudas Panimis Lev, which had been ruling the innermost part of the heart of Levav, Vezehu Veshivya B'tzedakah. And this sort of means Sion b'mishpat. This is 2 weeks ago. Shabbos Chazon. Sion b'mishpat. It's the last pasuk in the Haftorah from Shabbos Chazon. Sion b'mishpat tepoda. Zion. Zion is also the innermost panemius of the heart. The Sion, the sign, the pillar on which all of the world really stands, is redeemed b'mishpat, which the Alter Rebbe teaches Torah, and by learning Torah, one begins to open up, right? That's the external foreskin of the heart. And then the pasuk ends, Sion b'mishpat tepoda, u'hushiveha, and her captives, b'tzedakah. So tzedakah, after davening, reveal mitzvahs in general. Look, we're learning Hasidus, then we go to daven, and then we get involved in the world. That's the Seder. We're learning, we're bringing the panemius of Hashem's wisdom into our hearts. We're davening to express the innermost dimensions of our heart, and then we go and we give tzedakah. We put ourselves totally aside, and as we put ourselves totally aside, Hashem, as it were, puts himself aside and gives with open arms the Geula Shlema. That's Shabbos' Tanya. Well, that was a long time. It's a long time for all of you to be quiet. So they must, what are you having? What are you thinking? Well, a lot of people here.
The Shuva stuff is easier for me to understand.
It's easier me now as learning this? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to review the class after.
Yeah, sure. Shuva, return, come back. Shuva Yisrael, come back to who you really are. Come back to where you always belonged, but may have obscured it. A lot, a little bit, but there are tools for taking away the obfuscation, the obscuring, the darkness, peeling it away. And the tools, Torah, jumping into, as I said, the Torah is compared to water. Rabbi Akiva himself, he took 40 years to come back. He said the Torah is like water on a stone. It takes time, but the stone, which appears to be something solid and unchangeable, gets changed by water dripping slowly on the stone. That's the Torah. And then, after that, the tefillah, the davening. One of the meanings of davening is to come close, like a broken keli of clay. You put it back together again. Tefel, that's called tefel, to put together a broken vessel. So davening heals the wounds. It makes the separations whole. And then mitzvahs, totally going out of yourself. So with this in Torah, Avodah, Umilas Hasadim, it's as simple as that. You could take that and live with it. Right? In Pirkei Avos, Torah, Avodah, which is Avodah Shebelev, Umilas Hasadim, which is mitzvahs. When we do this, each one of us individually, that's the Geula Prati, the specific, individuated exile. And when we all do it, that's the Geula Klali for the whole world. It's good to get down to simple things. If we have a tripod, tripod is very stable. Torah, Avodah, Ugamilas Hasadim. Let me just think about that tripod, and creates a tremendous stability in one's service of Hashem, which, as we just learned today, gets to the innermost dimension of the heart and brings the Geula. Simple, but I guess not so simple because we haven't had Mashiach yet. Anybody? What else is on your mind? Besides, it's Erev Shabbos and we've got a lot to do, particularly our Israeli group. All right. So good Shabbos, not Shabbos Nachamu. 2 levels of comfort, 2 levels of the heart, 2 levels of love, B'chol Levavecha. Lots of 2s, 2 levels to open up. And with that, we'll see you Sunday. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Yeah, good Shabbos.
Shabbos.